Kale Zelden of The Underneath has been doing a course on Inferno by Dante, and we are about almost halfway through the first book of the Divine Comedy. It's a very good course. I would highly recommend it. It really helps you to reflect and to think through the topic and the material and to get insights that you might not otherwise get without having that type of structure. I want to look at two revealing moments that I've come across within my reading of Inferno, which have really provoked a thought in me and allowed me to explore and to think into something of interest to me and hopefully maybe of interest to others. So, hence the video. So, I want to look at two revealing moments when Dante gains wisdom from the inhabitants of hell. Can he trust that information, or is it cursed because of where he gets it? From hell, right? Throughout the poem, we can see that he gets wisdom from Virgil, and Virgil lives in the Inferno. But it could be that this is understandable. Virgil was picked by heaven. He was sent to guide Dante. He serves the purpose of paradise. It's easy to see him as having wisdom, but what about those who haven't gained divine mandate? What about those who are firmly trapped in hell? Are they able to offer wisdom or knowledge which is external to Dante? I say external because I don't want it to cover Dante reflecting and intuiting the wisdom himself. I don't want this to be Dante looking at the sinners and going, God, I would not like to be in their condition. I'm going to mend my ways. I'm talking about wisdom that he is directly gaining from the inhabitants of hell. The first gift of wisdom is from the Philosophers. It's Canto 4, Limbo. Dante has reawakened after the shock of entering hell. It's dark. Virgil guides him through a wood until they see fire in the distance. There are gathered the leading lights of the classical world, from Greece, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Homer and Hector, from the mythological cycles, from the Roman tradition, Cicero, Horace, Ovid, and Lucan, and that Brutus which helped establish the Republic in 509 BC, very different to the Brutus who comes at the end of the Infernal. But that Brutus is a descendant of this original heroic Brutus. So, philosophers, poets and heroes all gathered in a somewhat pleasant, verdant meadow, as the text tells us. Why are they there? Why are these heroes there? Why is Hector beside Cicero? One of the things that is apparent is that these are people who have mastered what it means to have virtue. Virtue as defined in the ancient world. Virtue of the mind, virtue of conduct, virtue of character. Hector is one of the great heroes of the ancient world. Caesar is there. Cicero, the refined man of knowledge and integrity. The poets, Horace and Ovid. Okay, Brutus, who was willing to risk his life to overthrow a tyrannical king. These are people who are pinnacles of the ancient world. So here's a question. Can those philosophers and heroes be saved? Like all good answers, it's complicated. Dante covertly asks Virgil, came anyone by his own merit hence, or by another's who was blessed thereafter? The brief answer is no. Only those who were pulled out at the harrowing of hell ever made it out. Virgil is proof of that. It is intervention from paradise which sent him to Dante. It is repeatedly the cry that this is the will of God which wins him passage, and even at the gates of Dis, an angel is what saves him. The philosophers present in this small little forest are great in number, presided over by Aristotle. They include Plato, Socrates and Cicero, named in the text as Tully. His middle name was Tullius, Marcus Tullius Cicero. But it's not just philosophers. There are those who are heroic and good like Hector and Aeneas. And here we have a panoply of classic virtue, literally virtue, coming from man, virtus, virtue, those noble manly qualities of the spirit, body and mind. And for all that, these men are powerless. They are those who have honoured every art and science. They have triumphed in the domain of man, gone as far as man can go on its own. And there is a subtle reward. Their location is a different place to others in hell. There is light, to some extent. It's somewhat pleasant. It's verdant. And this is the only place where someone smiles in hell. Virgil is recorded as smiling. But for all that, they are without hope. These philosophers lack the divine light. Yes, they have a fire which can push away the darkness somewhat. They can hold back the grimness from their verdant meadow a bit, but this is only the light of humanity. In the Bible, John 1:5, it is written that et lux in tenebris lucet, et tenebraeam non comprehenderunt. The light shone in the shadows, and the shadows could not overcome it. But that's not the situation of the philosophers. They are without hope, and the darkness is perpetually threatening them. The light from their man-made fire is painfully inadequate, and is only suitable to keep their desperate situation from deteriorating further. Now, an important question is, if these men are in hell, should Dante even trust any wisdom that he can gain from them? Importantly, Dante reveals the philosophers and heroes are not there because of wrongdoing. They are there because they were born before the gospel was revealed. They live desiring paradise, but without hope of attaining. It is a pitiful situation. Their standing in Virgil's eye is high. Virgil says, they are the masters of those who know, and on our mortal coil, they are described as equally being honoured. But not only by Virgil in hell, not only by man in this realm, but Virgil reveals a third and important point. Heaven itself values the contribution of these men. This is an important point. It goes a long way to explaining why Dante might be able to trust whatever wisdom he can glean from these men. Very early on in the Christian world, Virgil himself was regarded as foreshadowing Christ in his fourth eclogue or bucolic poem. Bucolic poems are poems of a rustic nature, living in the countryside, the good old days, right, before Rome became a debauched empire. It was a glory period, right, to look back to the bucolic lifestyle. In Virgil's fourth eclogue, he writes of a boy who will be born, who shall usher in a golden age. It starts off, Jam redditet Virgo radiunt Saturnia regna. Now returns the Virgin and the reign of Saturn. For the Romans, the reign of Saturn was a golden era. When we talk of a golden age, the reign of Saturn was that golden age for the Romans. Virgil was regarded no less a prophet of Christ by the esteemed figure of Constantine the emperor, who explains that he regarded Virgil as having prophesied the coming of Christ. And St. Augustine of Hippo explains that Virgil spoke truly, but lacked the ability of a pagan to understand what he had spoken of. In Purgatorio, the Roman poet and Christian Statius points to Eclogue 4 as the first thing which turned Statius towards the Christian faith. And this is not just solely a single thing, right? Across medieval Europe, in Spain, Rimini, in Italy, in Germany, there were churches where Virgil was depicted as a prophetic figure. And it's for this reason, of course, that Dante has him in. Just as Statius found his pathway to Christianity through Virgil's eclogue, this proto-revelation, then so too perhaps can other people. And there is a theological basis for this. While Tertullian asked, what has Athens got to do with Jerusalem? Clement of Alexandria and Origen, these famous early theologians, took a different approach. Clement of Alexandria saw Greek philosophy as being a gift from God to bring the Hellenics to Christ, just as the law was the vehicle which brought many Jews to Christ. Clement said that whatever had been rightly said by the Greek philosophers was because of the sprinkling of grace into their garden by God. Origen expanded this point, taking John 1:9 as a reference point. That was the true light which enlightens every man that cometh into this world. You see, for Origen, every pagan philosopher received some illumination from the Logos. And Origen says in a commentary on John, and this will be linked in the description if anybody wants to see that, those philosophers who held high reason, and reason being logos in Greek, were holding high that logos, which was there in the beginning, as defined by John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. The word being logos as well in Greek. Logos has many meanings, but the central power of the idea remains the same. The Word, the reason. Those adherents of the Word were adhering to that which would become the Word in John 1:1. Therefore, they were Christians in preparation. What could it be that Dante discusses with them? What is the wisdom gained? This is an interesting question. What was discussed? Hollander's notes describe later passages in Purgatorio, the second book of the comedy, which suggest that Dante listened while Virgil spoke with Statius about the art of writing poetry. So does Dante gain here the fundamental insights which allowed him to move from being a Florentine romantic poet right up to being worthy of an inclusion with Homer, Horace, Virgil, that fantastic group of six? How did he gain entry into that? Is that the gift that he was able to divine? Did he get to learn at the feet of the greats to understand classical roots of poetry and transmit that back into his own time? To an extent, he probably did. He seems to have a great indebtedness to Virgil, and I've seen that there also seems to be a lot of references to Horace as well in his poetry. But how it all pulled together, well, only Dante can know what happened there. So there is a strong tradition here of backing up the appropriateness of whatever wisdom and learning Dante might have gained from these poor souls in limbo. Not least that we are the beneficiaries of this wonderful poem that we get to study with Kale Zelden. Now, there is the question of, does this mean Dante gets to trust everybody who imparts wisdom to him in hell? In Canto 6, the canto that deals with the sin of gluttony, he also gains what I'm describing as external knowledge. In 6, Ciacco, a character from his Florentine political past, predicts the future of that city. He says it will be rent apart by violence. And the commentaries about this canto go into great detail about the political circumstances which might inform that prediction. What I wonder is there more going on here than Ciacco just predicting Florence's downfall? But equally, is there a trap for Dante? Is this a moment where Dante, who has perhaps overindulged in politics, become caught up into it, must be able to walk past it? So there's not just an element of, this is the political context. My enemy, Ciacco, is now mired in the mud. Look at him, look at my enemies, and I go on to glory. Does Dante have to overcome the resentment that he might feel when he writes about Ciacco, when he talks about the conflict between his faction and the other faction? Does Dante want to get out of the mud and walk past it? And does Ciacco, as an inhabitant of hell, is he only too likely to find some comfort in knowing that not only is Dante an opponent or Dante a person who he had conflict with, but that Dante can also get down into the mud to be in the same level as Ciacco? Is this a trap? And at the end of it, Dante has to walk away and move on. Because what we have seen, as described by Michael Martin in that very interesting video that Paul van der Klee also has done on it, is that all things that come from outside the realm of immediate knowledge is not always to our benefit. And Ciacco promising to tell Dante the future of Florentine might not solely be for Dante's knowledge, for Dante's benefit. So that was my take on the assessment of can the philosophers be trusted in Canto 4? Can somebody like Giacomo be trusted in Canto 6? And I look forward to doing more classes with Kale Zelden, and it's just an all-round enjoyable program. So I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed thinking about it, and sure, what more can we ask than that?